Let's begin with what referencing in Excel means. Cell referencing is basically how we access a particular piece of data in Excel. If we want to access a specific value, we do it through the coordinates or reference points that Excel provides. The numbers on the left and the letters at the top margins are the labels or reference points that allow us to access the data. For example, if you want to access the value in the first cell, you can just click on it here, or you can refer to it as A1. If you want to access a value in this position, say in column B, you would write B1. So if I want to access this 1, 2, and 3 here, I'll just look at whatever's on the top axis, which is C, and on the left side, which is 5. So this would be C5. So this is what is called referencing. Now, referencing is mainly of 3 types: relative, absolute, and mixed. So what are relative, absolute, and mixed referencing? So by default, the type of referencing used in Excel is relative. Now let's see how relative referencing works in Excel. So, for example, I'll just create a value here. So if we define this particular block as 1, 2, and 3, and again, this particular block as 3, 2, 1, so the value at B49 is 1, 2, 3, and the value at 321. The value 321 is present over there at B50. If I want to add these 2 values in a block, and I want to have that sum in a particular block, which is C51, which would have the sum of, say, any number of values, or specifically these 2 values in this scenario, I will just type equals. You have to use equals whenever you're performing any kind of operation, and then I'll refer to the cells. So you can refer to the cell by pressing Control and directing, or by just clicking directly over there. Just add the plus operator, select the other cell, and hit Enter. So this is how you refer to these 2 values by referencing B50 and B51, B49 and B51, and store the sum at C51. So this is how you access it. Now, if you want to perform this access in a tabular fashion, you need to define a generalized formula for it. So let's see how referencing works in a table. So this particular block is called a table in Excel. Whenever you load the data set into Excel, you have it in a raw format. Then, if you want to assign certain entities as your headings or titles, you just need to press Ctrl plus Tab here after selecting any cell. You just need to press Ctrl plus Tab. Since this is already in a table format, it won't work here, but normally you can just press Ctrl plus Tab and click OK. It would then be converted into a table. So a table is an entity that allows us to add multiple columns, and you just need to define any cell and then it gets generalized. This is the advantage we have with tables. We'll see that, but before that, let's look at how referencing works. Like I did before, I just selected this particular column, added these 2 values, and pressed Enter. So this is the result I got. 646 is the sum of 123 and 523. Now, if I want to generalize this for the whole table so that every time this value gets added to this one and is stored here in this particular cell, what I'll do is just click here and drag it down to where I want the summations to be. So that's what you just added across the table. You just need to click here and drag it out. The function we've written once gets generalized for all the cells. This is relative referencing where we haven't used any kind of operator. It's just the formula referencing the cells. So now, if you want to just write the formula like this, for example, position C5. If I write C5 and then add this position, which would be D5, you'll still get the same answer. So you have 2 methods. You can either type it out or just hold down Control on the keyboard and select whichever entries you want to choose. Then the generalization works in a very similar way. Alright, so now we want to look at absolute referencing. For that, let's use this one value, which is our 10% value, and we want to calculate 10% of all these product prices. For example, if there's a festival and we want to give a 10% discount on all the products, we'll need an updated data set that shows the 10% value for each item. So what we'll do for that is type equals. So we'll just type equals, then select the 10% value. But since we want to apply this 10% value operation to all the items, we need to add a $sign before and after the I. That's the variable we selected. And then use the multiplication operator since we want to calculate 10% and select a specific cell. So since this cell is part of this table, that's why this code appears here. But if you want, you can simply write the cell reference directly, which is C5. So this is the 10% value of our product 1. Now, let's say you want to apply this to a product 2 as well, or to all the products in your first row, first column. You'll do it like this. And now, if you want to calculate 10% for all of product 2 as well, to expand this to product 2, you just need to select this here, drag it over to include one more product, product 2, and then just generalize it by dragging it down to wherever you want it in your table. So all the values in the product 1 column and product 2 column, every value in this table are the 10% values of the original table. This is how you calculate it with respect to a specific value, which is 0.1, and keep that value constant. If you want to apply it to all the products, you need to add a $sign before and after. Now, you have a third type, which is mixed referencing, where we change this particular value and we have multiple values in it. Like in relative referencing, we just had one-to-one values, and in absolute referencing, we had one value applied to all the multiple values in the table. So in mixed referencing, what we'll have is multiple values here as well, which will change according to the table. So let's see how this mixed value works. Now, after looking at absolute and relative referencing, let's try to understand the third type of referencing, which is mixed referencing. So what is mixed referencing? In this, we have two different sets of values that need to be calculated with two different sets of discounts. So if you remember the scenario in absolute referencing, we had to multiply the entire value by only 10% for the whole data set, right? So we need to calculate 10% of the product 1 values and product 2 values and store them here. Now, what we'll do in mixed referencing is calculate 10% of all the values as well as 20% of all the values. So we have 0.1 as well as 0.2, which would be your 20%. And since here we've only stored the 10% value from all these values, right? The 10% value of these particular values for each cell. Now, what we'll try to do here is check and apply a 20% discount on all these product supplies. So now let's take an example where we have a particular situation with two products, A and B, and since the festival season is coming up, we're trying to offer a discount. So we're running a discount period for 2 days, and whoever comes to our shop will get a 20% discount on day 1 and a 10% discount on day 2. So we need the updated values for 20 and 10. For that, what we'll do is write 10 and 20 here. Just like before, we wrote 10 equals 10%, you can also directly write 20% and 10%. And this is the table, which is the updated table. In this table, we want A as our first row, B as our second row, and the first column is day 1. And day 2 is the second column. Now, this is the position where the 20% discounted price of our product A would be stored. This is the place where the 10% reduced price of our product A would be stored. So for that, what would the formula be? We know that if we want to calculate 20, you can either do it by calculating 20% and then subtracting that value from the total, or you could just directly calculate 80% of the total value. Now, let's try to take the long way and first calculate the 20%, then subtract that 20% from the 100% to get the 80% value. Okay, so let's see how the formula is created. Now, what we've done here is we've selected C28 using normal referencing. So what is this C28? This is the price of the first product, which is product A. Now, we need to calculate 80% of this product A. So what we'll do is multiply it by 1, calculate 20% of it, then subtract that and store the result in this position. So that would be 80% of the product, right? That is 1 minus whatever we get as the ratio of 20% of it, subtract it from the original value, that will give us the 80% value of the product. Now, the change or the difference we should notice here is that we have this particular dollar sign here. Now, what this dollar sign does is, if I don't put the dollar sign here and hit enter, I'll get a certain value. Now, if I drag it down vertically, what will happen? It won't multiply anything with this 50. So this 50 appears just as it was here because it's directly below this. Nothing is being done now. But what we wanted was for 10, like 20% of 50, to also be shown here. So for that, but since we want to perform the operation column-wise, as we saw here, since we wanted to perform the operation column-wise as well as row-wise for this particular one, we use the dollar sign before and after. Now, what we'll do here is try to restrict it to only column-wise operation. So we'll simply use a dollar sign just before our C. And here we'll use it after our C so that we get it both row-wise and column-wise. So this C would be for row-wise, meaning this 10% selection here, since we are using the dollar sign after C in the C33 reference, which is this point. So this would take this value, and in C22, it would take this value after that. So when we hit enter here, we'll just get the same value. Now we'll need to update this. So just drag it over here. You can see that this is the 20% value of 50. And when you stretch this to your right, you will get 10% of this 10. And if you stretch this further down, that is south, you will get 10% of 50 as well. So after removing 10% of 50, that would be 45. So this is how you apply marginal referencing. So just to sum up what our marginal, relative, and absolute referencings were, these are the standard referencing techniques when we want to write the formula once and then use it to generalize across the whole table. Okay, so here we just wrote the formula once, added this to, and dragged it to the end. This operation was performed on both A and B. In our absolute referencing, we took the 10% value over here. Then we needed to calculate and store the 10% value of all the values in product 1 and product 2. So what we did was select our point 1 and put a dollar sign before and after it. That is the column, and multiplied it by this and then generalized it here. We used a dollar sign before and after it because we wanted to go row-wise, column-wise, and row-wise multiplication with point 1. Now here, what we will be doing is we want to perform a column-wise operation in this particular table, specifically in this particular cell. That is why we put the dollar sign before C. So we are getting a column-wise operator, and we wanted to perform a row-wise operation with this particular data. So we put the dollar sign after the C, referencing the point. And when we hit enter, we got the values. And when we tried to generalize it, it showed up like this. The 20% discounted prices of these particular values are stored here. And this is the 10% discounted price of 150, which is 90, and 45 is stored here. Okay, so this was, in short, your referencing in Excel. This is how you can save a lot of time by calculating these values directly by writing the formula only once and then applying it to the whole column.
If you enjoyed this video, you can enroll in Great Learning Academy for free. Choose from hundreds of courses across multiple domains and earn a certificate of completion along the way. And if you want to take it a step further, you can try Great Learning Academy Pro Plus with a free trial. It provides access to additional premium courses with more advanced content from distinguished faculty, along with features like guided projects, a resume builder, and mock interviews to make your learning journey even richer. Link is in the description.